Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a thriller from Australia, English language, released in the year 2015, directed by Drew Brown, and this film is called The Suicide Theory. So The Suicide Theory is about this man. He's deeply depressed and he's trying to kill himself, but he fails at every attempt. So he's horribly disfigured from his previous attempts. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. So he has the theory that he is cursed, and he wants to get to the bottom of why he's cursed. So he's wandering around the streets, he's trying to kill himself, but each time he basically survives. And then one day he meets up with his hitman. Now this hitman is very brutal, he's very notorious, and he asks this hitman if he could finish him off. And so the hitman doesn't know what the hell's going on. This guy's given him a lot of money to do this, so he ends up shooting him. But unfortunately he doesn't die then, so it looks like this guy is basically invincible. But it's basically something that is really wearing away at not only this guy who's suicidal, but also now the hitman. The hitman wants to know what's going on, and this is what forms a very unlikely bond between the two of them. And this bond will force each and every one of these characters to really come to terms with who they are and what they've done in the past and what they have to do in order to move on with their lives. So it's about to get very complicated and very strange, and what happens at that point on is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Suicide Theory. Coming into this film, I was sceptical. Now, when it comes to Australian cinema, I've said this time and time again, I'm not really won over. A lot of these Australian made-for-TV crap films have really tarnished the image of my country. And so since the 70s and 80s, when it was the Ozploitation glory days of Australian cinema, they have dropped their bundle. But recently, there has been a little bit of a resurgence. You've got Wolf Creek, you've got The Killing Ground, that I think really pay tribute to those Ozploitation classics, and it makes it seem as though they're kind of reviving the subgenre. And so I think to myself, alright, well, this is an exciting time for Australian cinema, but the problem is that the damage, I think, has already been done, that a lot of Australians don't want to go out there and watch Australian films. And case in point, if you go to an Australian cinema, you see American films all over the place, but you see films such as The Killing Ground and also The Suicide Theory that really don't have much distribution at all. And I think that is a criticism of what has happened in the past. And so coming into Suicide Theory, it took me a long time to track this DVD down, and I was hoping that it would be worth the wait, but once again, that skepticism that is ever present with new Australian films was around. But I saw the trailer and I thought to myself, this looks very, very unique. This looks like something that could really blow me away, and I was hoping that it was going to be something that was going to elevate itself past the made-for-TV sort of element. And so after seeing the movie, I will say that it was worth the wait. This is a fantastic film, and this is a movie that I think can really go back to the Ozploitation era. This is a movie that can go out there with Wolf Creek, The Killing Ground, all those movies recently that have really revived Australian cinema, and I think that Drew Brown delivered a knockout blow in The Suicide Theory. It's not a perfect film, but it's a creative film. And in a world that is very repetitive, it's in a world in Australian cinema where it's all about television dramas, I think that Suicide Theory will really strike an audience as far as creativity is concerned, as far as dark quality is concerned, and brutality. This is a movie that doesn't pull any punches, and it's a movie that really makes the question as to responsibilities. Really, people, you can't really dodge your responsibilities. That suicide is an easy option if you are trying to avoid something, and so these characters are trying to avoid something that I'm not going to go into, but so suicide is not the answer, and so this is what's preventing this man from ending the pain. He actually has to confront the pain, and when he's confronting the pain, the level of intrigue is ever present. I thought the runtime was absolutely fantastic, and it never really gets boring, is because it does have that intrigue. There's something you haven't seen before, and you want to know where Drew Brown is really taking with the experience, and so that experience could have backfired. This is a very ambitious sort of film that could have backfired if it wasn't put into very good hands. But not only is the directing absolutely fantastic, you have fantastic performances from Steve Mazakis, who plays the hitman, and Leon Kane, who plays the suicidal man. And so when they're trying to dodge their responsibilities, once they come up and they have to face their responsibilities, you start to believe in the world of fate and things that are meant to be. And so the question is, why is it meant to be? Why is this fate? What is going on? And so when they start to actually confront what's going on, this is what starts to give the pro-life aspect, is that, okay, suicide is not necessarily the answer, and that you have to actually come to terms with what's going on, because it's a lot easier just to turn the blind eye to it. It's very difficult, but these characters are forced to actually do the difficult thing, and that's what creates a lot of emotion. When it goes into a side story, I thought to myself, alright, these characters are actually developing into a very three-dimensional shape, and it's a shape that I could really connect to. I thought they were very likeable characters, but put into a very barbaric world. This is a very cruel world that the movie is set in. It's a very dark film. The low-budget aspect of this movie really contributes to the atmosphere. It's a very absorbing atmosphere, very claustrophobic atmosphere, and it's a very, very dark film. And it does take tackle a very dark subject matter, but it tackles that subject matter with a level of responsibility, and that level of respect creates something that you can really enjoy, but at the same time it's not making a mockery of it, it's not making fun of it, it's using it as a very creative platform to actually go from, and it's something that needs actually to happen in order to keep the audience to watch. And so I thought that was very, very good. Instead of actually showing suicide as an escape mechanism, it's actually showing it as, you know, basically pro-life, in that if you get to know somebody, then maybe things start to change. And that was the same with the hitman as well. He specializes in ending lives, but then he starts to get this connection with this man, and he starts to second guess what he's doing. So death in this film is ever present, but then the pro force of life is starting to come out, but then it never really goes into a very bright and positive sort of environment, because just when you think it's doing that, all of a sudden it engulfs you in darkness again. So the darkness really just keeps everyone down, it's weighing everybody down, and it leads up to the very, very shocking conclusion that I thought was absolutely fantastic. The soundtrack was great, it really contributed, as I said, to the atmosphere. The low budget aspect of the film I thought was used very intelligently. It's a very brutal film, but it's the dark, brooding atmosphere that's created from the lack of budget. And so mega budget movies, if they're tackling dark subject matters, sometimes it looks a little bit too polished, but the lack of polish in this film actually works to its advantage. There's a little bit of a disadvantage. I thought it was a little bit ragged on the edges, but overall I thought it was a very gritty experience, and it's a gritty experience that you don't get very often, especially in Australian cinema. It does take risks, and fortunately those risks pay off. But unfortunately, it's not a masterpiece. The problems are very minuscule. I thought that, as I said, the raggedy sort of edges as far as editing is concerned, I thought some of the script needed a little bit of a polish up, and I thought that right at the end, the ending was very good, but right at the end, there's something that happened I thought was a little bit too convenient, and it felt a little bit rushed, and that it ran out of time, and it had to get to the base straight away instead of trying to take it out and basically expand it in a very natural way. So I have to be very careful not to spoil anything, but right at the end I thought it was a little bit rushed, a little bit too convenient, and I thought, okay, well, it doesn't derail anything, but that's what prevents it from being an absolute masterpiece. But it's a very dark experience. It's an experience that's very emotional. You can connect to these characters. It makes you look at the effect of suicide, and basically, you know, aiming up to the responsibilities of what you've done in the past, and the idea of fate and everything that's meant to be. So Drew Brown, well done. You've delivered an absolutely fantastic film, and it's once again another example of Australia haven't lost what it takes to actually go back into the Ozploitation era. So overall, going to give The Suicide Theory 4 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.